What's going on, guys? We are back. We are going to be talking about the EU grid. We got our finalized teams, the top 16, or I guess the top 6 from the closed qualifiers, and we're going to be doing some NA bracket predictions here. We haven't done a lot of these videos about esports and all that stuff recently. I've been relatively busy. Next month, hopefully, I can pick them up a little bit more just because Gibbs is going to start daycare, so then, we'll see how that all goes. But for now, I'm very bright on my feed. I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit. Oh, there we go. Okay. So let's talk about it real quick. What happened today in the grid, and then also the regional bracket came out for NA. So as we slide down here, we can look at the bracket. We'll look at the results, I guess, in the bracket. Some big moves happening here. Team Singularity coming in as the #1 seed, and they lose in the very first round to Team Woo. Now you say, who is Team Woo? And for some reason, these are not working right now for me, so I can't tell you exactly what's going on. But Team Woo, you would have guessed it, 3 French players, Kasai, Parka, and Foris. I haven't heard of them too much, but they're from France, so immediately you should rank them a little higher. That's the way it is. But Woo got a big upset there. They lost to Rlcs.gg after this. One thing I want to point out, this bracket is 16 teams, double elim, top 6 move on. But for a team like Rlcs, this is a great result. And also, it was best of 7s throughout, except for the first round in both lower and the upper. And I've been liking this new trend we have, even in the regional events with our brackets. We're going to best of 7 earlier. And here, we go to best of 7 when it really matters. And even in lower round 2, I believe, was also best of 7. So a lot more lengthy series to really make sure we're getting the very best teams. But Team Woo with a big upset in the first round. Outside of that, most of the top seeds won. Outside of Wolves, not the Wolves, I know. I'm sorry. I apologize. Wolves Esports, they took out Solary, and Solary continues on this downhill trend by picking up Tox. Maybe they're just not playing that well. Maybe Tox bringing in some internal conflict. You would hope that's not the case, obviously, because he just came off a team, which what we assume is the reason why he's off that team. But right now, they haven't really figured it out yet. So Solary dropped early. Outside of that, all the top seeds won their games, including S2V over the new Barca, Dignitas over Redemption in a Game 5, which was very important. Queso over Denied. We talked about them a lot last regional. That was a big Game 5 win. Fadeaway over Swag, another Game 5 win. That one's big. Swag is Cooks here, Flakes, and Resi, and we'll talk about them a little bit later. And then Train Hard got their 3-0 over Minx, and, it is what it is. 2 lower seeds won, and then everyone else, the top seeds won, but they were very close games. So moving on to the next part of the bracket, Rlcs coming in as that 8th seed, I believe, if this makes sense, with Team Singularity being the 1 seed. I think that is the case. Rlcs.gg coming in, and they get to play Woo, because obviously Woo took down Team Singularity, and Woo could not keep up that momentum. They still played pretty well, and I keep wanting to click this to see how these games went, but Rlcs.gg, they pulled through 4-2. So Rlcs is into the grid. Fadeaway taking down Team Queso. I know this was a 3-1 lead for Team Queso. Fadeaway battled back and got in. That's a big result because Fadeaway didn't have the greatest first regional, and Team Queso obviously went pretty far. So good result there from Fadeaway. They make it into the grid. That they were in the grid for 1 week last time because of a disband, so they got to rejoin once again. Then you got Wolves over S2V Esports. So Wolves pulling off the double back-to-back upset. So Wolves, big win there. And obviously Wolves is that brand new roster with a mixture of players from the top 16. We'll go back to their roster right here so you can see. Rix Rade, Louis, and Oli. It might be Lewis. I'm not really sure. So that roster, mixture of, a bunch of teams that were in that top 16 barely, or maybe just outside top 16. So Rix Rande, I know a lot of people are pretty happy he's not just in the RLRS forever anymore. He gets to play in the RLCS. He gets to play in the grid as well. So Wolves, they move on. Dignitas over Train Hard, an expected result. I think Dignitas is on that upward trend, which is a good sign for Dignitas when they do it this early with that new roster. So great for them. Then you move on to the lower bracket, and here's where things got interesting. Team Singularity, they lost in the very first round. They battled all the way back and beat Swag in Game 7. My dogs are running around here, down here, so I'm a little distracted. But in Game 7, I believe it was Game 7 overtime as well, Team Singularity gets the dub over Swag. To give it to Cooks here, Flakes, and Resi. A lot of people wanted Swag in. I think a lot of people didn't want it to be Team Singularity versus Swag, because I think you would probably want both those teams in, but that's the way the bracket played out. Team Singularity got the spot. On the bottom side, Barca and Minx go out early. Then Solary goes down to Team Queso 4-1. It really has been proven that Team Queso is not a one-hit wonder, like the fall split, what happened with them. So that's a great result for them. They don't make the grid, though, unfortunately. Redemption, another one of those teams that is a mixture of those bubble squads, or not bubble, but, top 16/top 20 teams. So Redemption beats Team Queso in dominating fashion 4-1. We'll go back to their roster. Cash, Mike Boy, and Asalon. So good for them making the grid. And I think the one thing that people always kind of forget is, like, people are like, well, what's the point of the grid if, like, the wild card's only number one or whatever it is, for the wild card. It's like they're playing for $90,000 every other week or so. They get to play against the very best teams with some great quality practice. Like, there's a lot of reasons why you want to be in the grid. Plus, for tiebreakers, grid teams always beat out non-grid teams for any tiebreakers. So that is a very useful aspect as well. And also, it will influence how you're seated. Now, that could backfire on you, like it did in Dignitas in the that fall split, where they did pretty well in regionals, but terrible in the grid, so they kept getting lower and lower seeds. But it could also help you a lot, like Team Oxygen, who was amazing in the grid, terrible in regionals. They would get bumped up a little bit as well. So it could go either way there. But that is your 6 teams joining the grid. We'll go back over the full grid here really quick for you. Just go over to week 1 just to see the teams. I assume there's no groups up or anything yet. No. Okay, so there you go. Endpoint, Galaxy Racer. So Endpoint, they were supposed to play in the promotion tournament. They played a tiebreaker versus Barca, but obviously that didn't matter because Barca is no longer with us. Galaxy Racer, Giants Gaming, Guild, Oxygen, Vitality, BDS, Liquid, Top Lokes, and Triple Trouble. And then joining them are the other 6. Moving on. So that is the grid roundup. We're going to go over the NA bracket predictions. We're not going to go over anything like extreme, like going through the whole bracket, because obviously there's a lot to unpack here. And then I would have to move teams around. But let's just look at these brackets. So for the first weekend, we'll talk about the first weekend. How about that? Because it's only day 1 and day 2. So we can eliminate some teams and move some teams on to day 3. So in each little pocket of 3 teams, one of these teams will make it to day 3 through the winners. So Space Station, Continuum, and Version 1. Like, Continuum has been one of those teams that have been hanging around. If it's the same, so Aeon, Astro, and Spider. Been hanging around. Version 1 hasn't looked great, but maybe it's time that they start looking better. Where is Version 1 on this one? Here we go. Torment, Gimmick, and Calm. So we'll see how that new roster plays out. But either way, whoever wins that game, I think they do lose the Space Station. I might have an early nod for Version 1, but maybe that's just because I'm a Gimmick fanboy. And then Space Station will come out and make it to day 3. Then we got Rogue, Xset, and Sippin' Ice Cubes. Let's go check out their roster. Sippin' Ice Cubes right here. Luke, Forky, and Mile. Ooh, that is a roster that people are going to want to see do well. Well, too bad they're playing Xset. Xset's been a very solid team outside of the grid qualifiers. They didn't do well there, so they won't be in the grid, but they are a very, very solid team. They got the automatic qualification spot here because they are tied for basically 12th in points, or the top 2 outside of the other teams. So that's even higher than 12th. I believe they're 9th right now. So Xset, I think they'll move on to face Rogue, and then it comes down to, does Rogue choke in their very first event? We've seen them in the grid look pretty decent with Taroko now on the roster, but the Ghost of Kronovi, watch out. It's going to show up in regionals. I think Xset pulls that out and moves on. So Space Station and Xset here. Then you got G2, Sonics, and Crimson Wings. Like here, you have to pick G2. They are looking great, but the Sonics are a pretty solid team as well. Crimson Wings, also not terrible. They've been picking it up. Skills, Prime Thunder, and Wonder now. So the Wonder Thunder combo is back in effect. But the Sonics, doing that T-Corral cycle, it's going to only probably improve that team. They've been doing pretty well with him so far, but I still think G2 will be the team to move it out. I'll give the Sonics that first round win, but G2 will pull it out. E United, Down to Earth. Tool, Bambi, and J-Bot. Another squad versus E United. Like, I'm not sold on E United. They've been up and down at times. Ajax, Wonder, Mike, and Tristan. They've had some hot streaks. They've had some cold streaks. I think the Peeps probably do come out of this. I want to pick an upset somewhere, and I think so. The Peeps, I think, are one of those teams that might not necessarily make top 8, and I guess we had one other upset here with Xset, but I got to go with the Peeps here versus probably E United, but I could see them faltering and down to earth winning that, but I'm going to give it to E United anyway. Moving on. Ghost Gaming, 72 PC, Jacob, Ty, and Seabass. I think 72 PC can do this versus Ghost Gaming. Like, Ghost Gaming obviously has been pretty disappointing, but they've hit a little bit of a hotter streak lately, but nothing too special. Lion Blaze, Freshness, and Mectos. I'm going to go 72 piece right there versus NRG, and obviously NRG is going to walk away the winners there. Alpine versus Loco or Soul. Who's on Loco? Andy, Beastamonium, Delta. I probably said that wrong. Like, obviously Delta, not Beastamonium or whatever. Anyway, what was the other team? Soul. Where's Soul? I don't know who's on Soul. Soul not even on here? Or am I just blind? Maybe they were a different name. Here we go. Parthenax, Shay, and Stealth. I don't know them too well, so I'm not going to give them the nod there. I'll give it over to Loco, and then I think Alpine. I really like Alpine, and I am glad that roster is the same roster, and I think they still have a pretty good shot at making top 6, so I'm going to give this one to Alpine for the win there. Next up, Team Envy and Board of Shadowy Figures Esports and Nefarious. I think Envy moves on. Probably Board of Shadowy Figures moves on as well, but that's about it. Then KCP. Ooh, so this one's interesting. Pittsburgh Knights and KCP, I think, have a history. They played a decent amount last fall split. And KCP obviously got the better of them by the end. That could be a trend and upset as well. Pittsburgh Knights coming at Rodoko, ZPS, and Sosa. That could be an upset. I'm going to go Pittsburgh Knights here. Like, I think they pull through and take down KCP in a big upset. And that's how we'll get our top 3. On the bottom, I'm not going to worry too much about doing the bottom 12 teams who get knocked out, because obviously it comes down to what match they came in and all of that. So we'll just focus in on these 8 teams at the start. So I had Space Station and Xset right here, so they would make it to day 3, which is the following weekend. G2 and the Peeps, Energy and Alpine, Team Envy, and Pittsburgh Knights are my 8 teams to make it through to that weekend. There it is, guys. Enjoy the weekend. I will not be there this weekend. I'm trying to take some family time a little bit because soon Gibbs is turning 1 in 2 weekends from now. So I'm just taking off both weekends to hang out with the fam this weekend, have a little birthday party, like a little small thing for Gibbs as well because he turns 1. So say happy birthday in the comments, and then I'll know that you made it to the end of the video. Thank you, guys. I love you, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.